Because they didn't want a 72 or 3-year-old?
I think a part of it was that they didn't want people thinking that anybody can walk in there and just go through the police academy.
Right.
Because
but you would train.
Yeah,
all summer.
But I mean, it's a very vigorous and rigorous program. You know, ain't nobody walking in there and completing it, trust me, unless you really are motivated.
Are you too old? Is it too late for you? You know what we're going to tell you. The answer is no. In this classic episode of Spartan Up, we've scoured the archives for 3 great stories that will prove our point. You're not too old. Excuses are boring. It's not too late. You'll hear from Amelia Boone, who interviewed Marla Sweeney about taking on Spartan challenges in her 70s. You'll hear from Kevin Gillotti and Heather Gollnick about training tips, nutrition, and injury prevention. And finally, you'll hear a piece of Joe De Sena's interview with Jimmy Binns, who at age 74 became a police officer, including taking and passing the grueling physical examination. This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by the Exogen Ultrasound Bone Healing System. Exogen is a non-invasive treatment option that can help heal your broken bone. To learn more, visit exogen.com/Spartan. You're not too old, it's not too late, excuses are boring. That's what Sephra the Seed Huntress, Johnny Waite, Joe De Sena, and Iceland Mike say in this introduction to Marla Sweeney.
So you're telling me this woman, Marla, started racing at 70 years old?
Started
racing at 70 years old.
Yeah.
Think about that.
I'm thinking about it.
Sure you have your numbers right?
I got my numbers, celestially aligned. Yeah. I guess one more year in the belly. In other countries, they count that year as one. So she's even 71 in other places.
71. She's got no excuses.
No one does. Excuses are so boring.
Marla Sweeney sat down with Amelia Boone at the Tahoe Spartan World Championships, and she explained how she started doing Spartan races in her 70s. She started small, walking 1/3 of a mile, and then later picking up a bucket.
When you got into Spartan racing, what was your first Spartan race?
My son got addicted and drank the Kool-Aid to obstacle course racing and started out with Spartans. And I went to a few events as a spectator, and I kept thinking, I can do that. Oh, that wouldn't be too bad. So I played around with it, looked at videos in the summer of 2015 and said, I think I can do that. So I live by some mountains, so I do a lot of trail running. And I had not gotten off the couch. Once your kids are grown, they have kids, you fall into that no man's land. And so at 70, I committed to my first Spartan, which was February of 2016 there in Arizona. And I did the sprint.
That's incredible. And how did you train for it? And so if you weren't doing anything at the time, where did you attack and what did you decide to do?
When you don't really know what you're getting yourself into, I would go out, and I call it my granny trot. I would go out on the Jeep trails, and they're rocky like the course was yesterday coming down. And I thought I was really cool. Hey, I did a mile today. Yeah. And then I would gradually increase. I think my fastest was 10 or 11, but I was really pushing myself. But that's what I did. I got a Home Depot bucket and rocks on my porch. I have a sandbag on my porch. And I thought if I can do my granny trot in a 1/3 of a mile and carry that sandbag, I'd be really cool. Evidently, I had no clue how much more I needed to do, but I couldn't belong to a gym because I financially couldn't. But when I retired, there's Medicare and Medigap, and one of them gives senior citizens, which I think is a great idea. They give them a free gym membership at some of the gyms, and it's called Silver Sneakers.
Oh, that's incredible.
So there's no one retired and on Medicare and Medicare Gap that cannot do that. So this June was my first gym trip. Now, I've gone to CrossFit with my son a few times, but, to flip a tire or something. But it wasn't anything like what you guys do. I had no clue. But at least I was getting out there, and I got to go for my run tonight. And then eventually I did 3K or 5K, and I thought, that wasn't too bad.
That's incredible. I mean, and I think that it's so funny as I tell people too, the first obstacle race I ever did, I couldn't do a pull-up. And I got out there and I failed everywhere. And you just have to you work through that. So I have to ask, I mean, you have 3 kids. Like, do you have an athletic background? Were you ever, athlete back in the days and then, kids and life got in the way? Or is this something at the age of 70 years young where you're like, I'm going for it and I can do this?
I loved volleyball and softball, so I played up through my 30s on those leagues. Yeah. And then I had horses, and I barrel raced. And that's funny you ask. I've told my friends that when I'm 80, I want to do my last barrel race.
Yes.
So they better make sure. So
maybe we can convince Joe to put some horses in the Spartan race.
There you go.
And then you can win that category.
I just train, Amelia. I push my body, and I have some physical limitations, but that's okay. I'm a self-doubter, and I know I am, and I have to fight that. Mm-hmm. You've got to make yourself think positively. And I tell them, you can do it. If I can, take one step at a time. It doesn't matter if you're the fastest and if you walk. You can still do it if you need help on an obstacle. And the road there, when you start out exercising after years of nothing, the road there is just to get up and go out and walk. And once you feel better, you're going to sleep better. And you're going to handle any stress in your life better, because go out there in nature, and listen to the wind, and it's perfect. A lot of people go to the treadmill. I can't do a treadmill.
I can't do a treadmill either.
My lower back, it just kills it. So that's all right. I work on other things. But everybody is different. They learn, and I tell them, listen to your body. Oh, well, my shoulder hurts. And I said, well, walking's not going to hurt your shoulder.
Exactly.
And I have osteoarthritis and my hands are, swollen. So I just use my arm to get over a wall rather than my hands. And so and so don't use it as an excuse. A lot of people, I think, do.
A lot of people, I'm in my mid-30s and I'm like, I got a bad hip and so I'm sure that if we're trying to inspire more people, and especially older people, to come out and do this, and they're like, I can't, my back, or I have arthritis in my hands. Like, what do you tell them?
What I basically tell them is that I have some handicaps or disabilities. Oh, I could never do the Herc hoist. Yes, you can. I said, you can do it as a team. You can stand on the rope. But I tell them, if your shoulder hurts, then do something else. If you can't do barbells, which I can't, I have an artificial neck, then I work on the fly, or I do the leg press or things like that. And I tell them, it's okay. You're not competing. You're not going to succeed at every obstacle. I will never be able to do the rings or the twister. But you can adapt, and you can still do the rest of it. I'm afraid of heights. So was I. But if you have somebody below you on each side of you, you know what? You'll get over that. Mm-hmm. And they kind of psych themselves out. So you have to identify where they're psyching. And then you go in, not to be selfish and tell your own aches and pains. You need to show them that it can be done. And when we get 70 or 60, our bodies are not like yours, Amelia, at 30s and 40s. And it's a different set of muscles and using them.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is you find a way to do it.
Here's some tips for training, injury prevention, and nutrition as you age from Spartan athletes Heather Gollnick and Kevin Gillotti.
Heather, you and I have a pretty long history with multi-sports. We both switched over to OCR racing. We're both in our 40s. Tell me, what do you have to go through? What kind of strategies do you use at your age to stay this fit, this awesome, and keep going after 30 plus years of racing?
I, like you, just am addicted to working out and sport and just love the competition. And I think when you love competition, it drives you to train.
Yes. How are you at this age keeping from getting injured?
Well, I definitely think as you get older, we're both 48, as you get older, you also get smarter. And so sometimes I have aches and pains and I listen more. And I think when I was younger, I never would stop. And I think I'm just very, very fortunate too. I do a lot of cross training. The triathlon background helps with that. I do a lot of strength training. I do a lot of recovery modalities.
Do you think there's a genetic component there to us?
Probably some of that, for sure. I think obviously just the consistent training, it's consistent over years and years and years, plays a part in it. I think sometimes people come into the sport new and they try to do that same amount of training and their body's not ready for it.
Yeah. Give me some idea about what you do for nutrition, especially at our age.
The most important thing, they say recovery drinks within 30 minutes. For me, it's like 5 minutes. I make it before I go out to run. I make it before I go bike or run. It's made. And
so you already have it ready.
When I come in, I'm drinking it. I went for a little run today. I had it right when I was done. So
when it comes to those recovery type protocols, you're not lagging behind and delaying on it thinking, I'll get to it at some point. You're getting to it immediately to start to get that body to heal quickly so you can perform well again the next day.
Definitely.
Yeah, same strategy I use. Well, hey, I'm glad to see you here. I know you're going to crush it because you always crush it. Have a great race.
Thanks, Kev.
All right.
We'll be right back to this interview, but first, a little bit from our sponsor, Exogen. Spartans, a broken bone can interrupt daily activities and even worse, keep you on the sidelines. Determining the best treatment option can be stressful. In just 20 minutes a day, Exogen helps jumpstart your natural bone healing process so you can get back to the race. Don't let a broken bone keep you on the sidelines. Talk to your doctor to see if Exogen is right for you. Exogen is indicated for the healing of non-union fractures and for accelerating the healing of certain acute fractures with no known contraindications. To learn more, visit exogen.com/Spartan. That's EXOGEN.com/Spartan. Okay, back to the interview. And finally, Jimmy Benz. Remember, it's not too late. At age 74, Jimmy Benz became a police officer, and that included taking and passing the grueling physical examination. Here's his story.
I remember a year or two ago you said, Joe, I'm going to become a police officer. And I'm thinking he's really lost his mind now.
Yeah.
Because who becomes a police officer at 74 years old?
Only a crazy person.
Is there anybody ever?
No.
No one.
Of course not. So anyway, I asked somebody how I should do it, and they told me I could go to this police academy that's run by the state police here in Pennsylvania. So, pardon me. So I applied, and then I received the papers back to say you have to take a physical on such and such a date, September the 15th, and you have to take a psychological on September the 22nd. So like 7 days later.
But they figured there's no way.
Well, they didn't know anything about me.
Oh, they didn't know your age. They just sent you the packet.
Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, so I called the man that was the director of the school. He's a former state trooper. And so I said, Director Davis, I'm aspiring to become a cadet in the police academy, and I've got my papers, and I have no difficulty with the date for the physical examination. But I said the psychological examination conflicts with an event that I run each year called the Hero Thrill Show. Well, obviously, he's going to know what the Hero Thrill Show is. He's a cop. So he said on the phone, he said, well, if you don't mind me asking you, Mr. Binns, how old are you, sir? And I said, I'm 72. And he said, this is going to be a little tough. He said, but this is a very vigorous and rigorous program. And I said, yeah, I know, I'll probably come out first. And he laughed out loud on the phone. He said, well, don't worry about the psychological. We have them all the time. I said, all right. So he later told me that he told the guys that were giving the physical, he said, don't worry, you'll blow this guy right out, but we're going to do it for him anyway. So I went out, and I had to do a certain number of bench presses with a certain weight, and I had to do a certain number of sit-ups that were timed, and then I had to run 1.5 miles in a certain number of minutes.
At 72?
At 72, 73 by then. But it was 73. So
I remember you were calling me. You said, hey, listen, I got to get a little faster on the mile.
I asked you, can I put weights in that thing?
Yeah.
So anyway, I went out there, and so the first thing they did was they said, Mr. Binns, come to the front of the line. They say, you go first. I figured that it would blow me out early. That would make it easy for them. So there's 2 state troopers on either side of the bench. And they said, okay, would you like us to put all the weight on? Or I said, put it all on. So I went in and I just, boom. Because I know how to do bench presses. So they were like, so then they went so then we go into this other room, aerobics room, to do the sit-ups. So the way you do it is like if you and I are in line, you get down, I hold your feet, and you do yours, and then you hold my feet, and I do mine. Well, unfortunately, the kid in front of me got to the last sit-up and he couldn't do it. He didn't make it. They blew him out. They said, go home. You can't do it. They said, before you go home, hold this guy's feet. It's me. So when I got to about, it was only like my 8th sit-up. I'm boom, boom, because I trained all summer for it. So, I mean, I knew when I went out there, I wasn't going out there to fail.
State trooper the state trooper is watching you to make sure you're not cheating. To
make sure that, because, they don't want, you're not allowed to kip your back or anything.
And they weren't checking other people, they're checking you.
Well, they were checking everybody, but not as close as they were checking me. He actually got down on the mat to make sure there wasn't, any room between my...
Because they didn't want a 72 or 3-year-old?
I think a part of it was that they didn't want people thinking that anybody can walk in there and just go through the police academy.
Right.
Because
but you had trained all summer.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a very vigorous and rigorous program. Ain't nobody walking in there and completing it, trust me, unless you really are motivated.
Sure.
But then I started to matriculate and fast forward through, they appointed me to class lieutenant. So I'm the class leader. I call the roll, I lead them in the Pledge of Allegiance, I command everybody. If they get out of line, I give them demerits, And so during the course of the matriculation, I never missed one class. Now, I went for a year. When I had to go at night, so I went for 1 year. I never missed one academic class. I missed a PT class when I had to go to Washington the night to read the names of the Pennsylvania officers that go onto the wall down in Washington each year at the Candlelight Vigil during Police Week. But I never missed an academic class. I took 22 tests, and I graduated with a 98.4 grade point average for those 22 tests and received the academic award plus the all-around Delaware County Police Chiefs Award for academics, physical fitness, ethics, and leadership.
So I'm looking for a theme here, not just for me, but for the Spartans. 1, hang out with motivated people. 2, it looks like you always get ahead. Like that summer before you applied,
I trained for the whole
you trained
summer.
all summer. Most people would say, you know what, I'll get serious.
Yeah,
in the
a lot
fall,
of kids
right?
did. I saw kids drop like flies.
Yeah.
I saw them drop like flies on everything, on the bench press, on the sit-ups, and especially on the running.
Because they didn't prepare.
Yeah,
right? They weren't willing to put the time in.
No,
right?
you got to pay the price for anything. For anything that you're going to get in life, it's a fight. And if you're not prepared to pay the price, you're not going to get there.
You're not going to get there.
You're going to be second best always.
Right.
Thanks for listening to this classic episode of the Spartan Up Podcast. Remember, whatever task you're taking on, you will need resilience of mind, body, and spirit. And we're here to be your partner with reminders, techniques, and strategies 3 days a week to help you stay on track. Whatever app you listen in, click that follow button or that subscribe button to make sure you get notifications and you don't miss valuable information. See you next time. This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by the Exogen Ultrasound Bone Healing System. Exogen is a non-invasive treatment option that can help heal your broken bone. To learn more, visit exogen.com/Spartan.